Watch till the end to understand the full story of John Lennon, a man whose life behind the public legend was far more turbulent, intimate, and secretive than anyone could imagine. The Beatles didn't split because of one person. They drifted apart naturally, but the public only saw Lennon as a musical genius and devoted husband to Yoko Ono. Beneath that image, he carried secret same-sex relationships that he revealed only in fragments before his death. These connections ranged from fiery passions that left him shaken to delicate bonds of trust, each shaping him in ways the world never knew. His relationship with Paul McCartney was more than collaboration. It was an almost romantic connection forged from their earliest days in Liverpool. From sharing meals of dry bread in shabby rooms to sleeping on the same bed in the lean years, their bond was intense, sometimes jealous, sometimes obsessive. Even as the Beatles reached global fame, Lennon's jealousy and need for Paul's presence bubbled under the surface, revealed in letters trembling with rage and longing, pleading for connection. And then there was Brian Epstein, the manager whose affection crossed ordinary boundaries, offering gifts, devotion, and private moments that Lennon accepted but ultimately could not reciprocate. A private holiday in Barcelona became a turning point, a brief dance with desire and power before social pressures and fear of exposure forced Lennon away, leaving Epstein to a tragic, lonely end. In these early years, and throughout the 60s and 70s, Lennon's life was a web of complex, hidden relationships that alternated between fierce intensity and painful loss. Every secret affair, whether with MC Jagger's wild energy or the tender whirlwind with Elton John, added layers to the man behind the myth. These were not mere anecdotes. They were chapters that defined the loneliness, the rebellion, and the contradictions of a man the world only partly knew. John Lennon's private world was filled with desire, obsession, and heartbreak, often hidden behind the public image of the Beatles' peace-loving genius. In the late 60s, he encountered Mick Jagger, a wild, magnetic force whose presence ignited a collision of power and sexual tension. Their connection went beyond friendship, a covert affair marked by sly smiles, backstage disappearances, and a dangerous energy that even Yoko Ono recognized, calling Jagger a kind of poison. Yet for Lennon, these encounters were as much ego games as acts of desire, testing boundaries and defying societal norms. Meanwhile, tenderness found its way into Lennon's life through his whirlwind romance with Elton John. In 1974, during Lennon's lost weekend of despair and substance abuse, Elton's presence brought a fleeting yet fierce love that helped Lennon rediscover faith and hope. They shared music, laughter, and silence, and for a brief time, Lennon softened, letting himself be vulnerable in a way he rarely could. Elton's love was intense, yet short-lived. It gave Lennon wings to return to Yoko, leaving Elton holding the void, a silent witness to a man whose heart could ignite and vanish. Bowie entered Lennon's life with a different intensity, a collision of artistry, admiration, and desire. In the smoke-filled nights of New York, Bowie offered Lennon a mirror of the freedom and strangeness he craved. Their bond, filled with music, shared laughter, and intimacy, ended when Lennon returned to Yoko, leaving Bowie with a memory of love unacknowledged, immortalized only in chart-topping hits. These relationships were not fleeting anecdotes. They were fundamental forces shaping Lennon's emotional landscape. From the haunting loss of Stuart Sutcliffe, whose death left Lennon reeling, to the childhood bond with Pete Shotton that blended friendship and unspoken desire, every connection etched layers of longing, conflict, and vulnerability. Behind the Beatles' global fame, Lennon's life was a labyrinth of secret loves, rivalries, and complex emotions that revealed a man fiercely human, struggling between the needs of the heart and the demands of legend. John Lennon's story is not just music and fame. It is a mosaic of secret desires, obsessions, and artistic entanglements. In the early 70s, New York became the stage for another complex bond, his connection with Andy Warhol. The pop art icon saw Lennon not as a global star, but as a vulnerable, living artwork. Behind the factory's neon-lit chaos, Warhol painted Lennon's bare back, whispering of possession and admiration, creating a space where the rebellious Beatle could be fully seen and exposed. Lennon, initially intrigued by this unusual attention, gradually let himself be drawn into Warhol's world, a mixture of bizarre art and intimate vulnerability, even as Yoko Ono's presence constantly pulled him back. These hidden moments reflected Lennon's constant struggle to balance public image with private truth. All his life, he carried ambiguous desires, knowing the world would never accept them. In the 1960s and 70s, homosexuality remained stigmatized, punishable, and capable of destroying careers. Lennon understood that fully. To reveal these secret loves would not just endanger his image, but threaten the Beatles' empire and shatter the millions of fans who idolized him. So he buried these affairs, letting whispers circulate without confirmation, maintaining the ambiguity that shrouded his life. The shadow of legend trapped him. He was both John Lennon, the flawed human, and Beatle John, the global icon of rebellion, peace, and music. From his early childhood, growing up in wartime Liverpool with instability and scarcity, Lennon's yearning for love and understanding drove him to forge deep, secretive bonds. From Paul McCartney to Stuart Sutcliffe, from Brian Epstein to Elton John. Each relationship left an imprint, shaping the man behind the public image. His legacy is not just the music he created, but the life he lived in quiet resistance, love, rebellion, and unspoken truths. Lennon's story reminds us that legends are built not only by what is celebrated, but also by the darkness they conceal, the unspoken struggles, and the complex humanity hidden behind the myth. John Lennon's legacy is a study in contradictions, where public rebellion collided with private vulnerability. Behind the Beatles' global fame lay a man driven by desire, loss, and secrecy. His earliest relationships, like the bond with Pete Shotton, blended friendship with unspoken longing, shaping a pattern that repeated throughout his life. Lennon craved closeness and loyalty, yet fear and societal pressure often forced him to conceal his deepest emotions. The loss of Stuart Sutcliffe, his friend and early soulmate, left Lennon shattered, fueling his jealousy, intensity, and mistrust. Later, encounters with Brian Epstein, MC Jagger, Elton John, David Bowie, and Andy Warhol revealed the spectrum of Lennon's hidden life, from turbulent lust and rivalry to tenderness, trust, and artistic intimacy. Each connection carried lessons of love, power, and betrayal, sometimes brief, sometimes life-altering. These relationships, never fully acknowledged publicly, shaped his creativity, his rebellious persona, and the raw honesty of his lyrics. Yet amidst these hidden passions, Yoko Ono remained a central anchor, blending love, influence, and control, guiding Lennon through personal darkness while constantly pulling him back into the public eye. The world saw Lennon as a devoted husband and revolutionary artist, but only fragments of the human behind the legend emerged. He navigated fame, love, and desire with a careful balance, revealing just enough to sustain myth while protecting private truths. His silence about same-sex relationships was not cowardice. It was survival, a conscious choice to preserve the Beatles' image, his marriage, and the cultural revolution he embodied. In every letter, encounter, and fleeting romance, Lennon's humanity was palpable, an imperfect man striving for connection, yet constrained by circumstance and reputation. The combination of genius, vulnerability, secrecy, and rebellion defined his life. By examining these hidden layers, we see the fuller picture, a man whose personal struggles intertwined with cultural impact, whose unspoken desires and secret loves left a legacy as complex and enduring as his music itself, revealing that the legend of John Lennon is as much about the hidden as the celebrated. John Lennon's life, from his childhood in wartime Liverpool to his tragic death in New York, is a tale of genius intertwined with secrecy, love, and rebellion. Born on October 9, 1940, he grew up amid scarcity and instability, shaping a soul forever craving connection and understanding. Meeting Paul McCartney in 1957 ignited the birth of the Beatles, a group that became the voice of a generation. Lennon's rebellious spirit, satirical lyrics, and onstage irony set him apart, but his personal life remained a labyrinth of hidden desires. Behind the Beatles' global image, he navigated complex, secret relationships, intense bonds with men like Stuart Sutcliffe and Brian Epstein, flirtations with MC Jagger, tender romances with Elton John, and deep artistic connections with David Bowie and Andy Warhol. These encounters were fueled by love, curiosity, ego, and sometimes survival, each leaving emotional marks unseen by the public. While Yoko Ono remained his anchor, influencing art, politics, and activism, Lennon carried a private world of longing and secrecy that the world never fully glimpsed. His legendary status required sacrifice. To preserve the Beatles' empire and the public's trust, he concealed these truths, letting whispers circulate without confirmation. Yet his humanity, desire, vulnerability, grief, and love was never absent. Lennon turned personal pain into art, social critique into performance, and intimacy into lessons of life and creativity. His music, activism, and iconoclastic persona reshaped culture and inspired generations. On December 8, 1980, Lennon's life ended abruptly, fixing him in history as a symbol of youth, rebellion, and incomplete peace dreams. But beneath the public legend lay the unspoken, the complex human whose secret loves, obsessions, and vulnerabilities were integral to his genius. John Lennon's legacy endures not only in music, but in the understanding that greatness often masks hidden struggles, that rebellion coexists with tenderness, and that a life lived fully, even in secrecy, can leave a mark that transcends fame. His story reminds us that the man behind the myth was as extraordinary for his concealed truths as for his celebrated achievements.